Hi, thank you so much for joining me today. My name is Kate with Beautiful Light Home. I'm so glad to have you here. I am a homeschooling, Waldorf inspired mama to 2 children. My oldest will be 7 in the fall, and that's when we're going to start our first academic year, first grade. So I am currently prepping and planning for our curriculum for next year. Now I'm doing a whole entire series about planning my own curriculum and what I've been using. So hopefully if you are looking to do your own curriculum, you'll find this useful. Even if you're not planning on doing your own curriculum, you still might be able to get some great insights into what I'm doing to plan the curriculum. So this is a whole series of videos. I have done several already. You can check my YouTube page and like and subscribe to my page because I'm going to keep adding as I go. But I have a whole series on why I'm planning my own curriculum, like what led me to that decision instead of purchasing a curriculum. I have the tools that I'm using. I have one on form drawing. I have one on watercolors. And so right now I've been really planning our extracurriculars because I'm really in the throes of really planning the English right now. And I'm not ready to share that just yet. But the extracurriculars, they were a little bit easier to throw together. So speaking of extracurriculars, I'm going to talk to you about what we're going to be doing every Monday. Our every Monday task is going to be handwork. That's going to be our extracurricular. So here's some of the stuff that I'm using. So first of all, I've talked about this before, but I have GoodNotes here on my iPad. I love this as a planning tool because I can take all of my notes for every single subject in here. And one of my favorite things that I do is I'm also able to take pictures of key standout phrases and information from books, from all the different books I'm collecting, and put them right into GoodNotes. I am a very tactile type of reader, so although I'm putting everything in here, I'm also going to be printing this out and putting it into a binder once I've collected all of my thoughts and all. So, handwork. What am I using to prep and plan? As always, the tasks and content of the Steiner Waldorf curriculum. If you've seen any of my videos yet during this series, you know this book is a must. Just assume it's going to be used in every single subject that I'll be talking about. Section 12 in here is all about crafts, which leads to handwork. So it has great information in here about the purpose of why we do handwork, especially if you're not familiar with why we do handwork in Waldorf schools and homeschools. This gives you a great background just to kind of give you a high-level overview. This comes right from this book. It says, intellect develops from the movements of the limbs, from dexterity and skills. And what better way to do that than with handwork? In addition, Rudolf Steiner always talked about how like making something with purpose and meaning, it fills the children with pride. It kind of shows them what kind of work goes into making a shirt or anything that's around them. They realize that like there's work that goes involved in that. And making something not just for the sake of making it, but for making it with a purpose really resonates with their soul. And children from the ages of 7 through 14, that's really what we're trying to develop in them. The first 7 years is all about developing like their body, and then we're really trying to work on their soul and their spirit from ages 7 through 14. So this book really goes into more of the purposes behind why we do handwork. And then it does go through tasks that you can complete. So you can look at this and kind of get an idea of what kind of things you can make as lessons for first grade handwork. But because most of it revolves around knitting, I have 2 extra books that I want to share with you. So speaking of knitting is mostly what you're going to do for the first at least 2 years in a Waldorf classroom for handwork. There's other projects like wet felting and finger knitting and things like that. But for the most part, you're going to be focusing most of your time on knitting. I started looking into this back in March timeframe. It's May now. I wrote this a couple months ago and really looked at this a couple months ago. And the reason why I started 6 months before the school year is because although I love crafts, and I can crochet, and I can do a whole bunch of other different craft work and different handwork. I've never really learned knitting, and I always wanted to. So I felt like this was a great opportunity to really master that skill, give myself enough time to master the skill necessary to be able to teach my children. So if you are looking to do handwork with your children, learn it first. Don't learn it along with them. Learn it first. So the two books that I'm using as resources for the curriculum are these two books. The first is called Teaching Through Stories, Jane and Jeremy Learn to Knit. It's by Elizabeth Seward. It's a great book, but it's different. It's interesting. It might not be exactly what you're looking for. First of all, this book goes through why in a Waldorf classroom do we teach through stories? What's the purpose of teaching through stories? It tells you all about that. In addition to that, it gives you stories, these beautiful stories about Jane and Jeremy. I think they're twins, and how they're learning to knit with their aunt. And it's kind of like you introduce the story, and then the next day you introduce the skill to the child. So this way they can kind of think about it and get excited about that overnight, take it with them while they sleep, and then when they wake up the next morning, you can do that actual skill with the children. So it's kind of like bringing the story to life. And again, stories are really playing on the soul and playing on the spirit at that point. It's a great way to connect with the spirit. So it tells you little stories that you can tell before you introduce a skill. It does have, it has some great information, some troubleshooting with classrooms and classroom management, great information even on temperaments. And it does have different patterns that you can use to create different things and when you should be doing them. It tells you in this book when you should be doing them. Here's where I feel like this book falls short. So for instance, this is the pattern for the dolly. So there's not a lot of picture. Like if you are confused about the skill of this, you're going to want a different resource. And that's where I find this next book comes into play. It's called A First Book of Knitting for Children. It's by Bonnie Gossie and Jill Allerton. I bought this one secondhand, but what I love about this is that it's all in color. It has every single type of skill that you'll need. It shows you in more detail how many, like the patterns and things like that. And the patterns almost always align with the stories that are in this book. Now, being somebody who is very visual in learning, I even checked out YouTube. I mean, you can go to YouTube. It does also tell you like little verses that you can use to knit and purl and things like that to remember how you're doing it. But yeah, I definitely feel like you need, if you are unfamiliar with knitting, this book isn't going to be enough skills. It's great for stories. It's great for working with the heart of children, but this is more skill-based. So I kind of liked using both of these. Now in the past, if you checked out any of my other videos, I said that form drawing and watercolors, I have like 30 lessons already for watercolors in that book. With form drawing, I have enough for basically our whole school year, enough lessons for our whole school year. But with this is going to be kind of a as we go type of thing. My goal is to do handwork every single Monday, and but I know myself, and I know that as soon as the weather turns nice in the spring, we get outside on Mondays and I'm in the garden and I'm trying to weed. And my children are playing, and sometimes handwork falls by the wayside. That's okay. That's the beauty of homeschool. I'm giving myself the grace to say that's the beauty of homeschool, and it's okay to be outside. At the same time, there's plenty of times that we are randomly outside on a Thursday in between things, and we're sitting outside and I'm doing handwork, and my kids sit right next to me with their handwork. So this is going to be a project by project basis. So we'll start the school year with a bunny. It's just knitting. You knit a square, essentially. I think it's 16 across by about however many rows a square would be. and then you teach them how to sew a little bunny. So that's going to be our first lesson, and it's just going to go project by project after that, with really just playing into the knitting skill. There's a rainbow ball in here. I've seen people make scarves in first grade. Like they try to make a scarf that's as long as their body, which is really cute, with color changing in it. So you're learning different skills, but you're making something purposeful. There's flute recorders, because we're also going to be doing, recorder covers, the flute recorder covers. So a case for it, that's the word, sorry. A recorder case that we'll probably make later in the school year. But those are all the different types of handwork projects we're gonna use, and that's what this is the tools that I'm using. So please, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. I love answering your questions. I love connecting with you. In the comments below, feel free to leave me questions and comments, and I'd be happy to get back to you about any of them. You can also head on over to my Instagram page, which is @BeautifulLightHome. And I do also have on there, I share not only our homeschool adventures, but our backyard farming adventures and beekeeping adventures, chicken adventures, whatever we have going on at my house. I also share stuff from my Etsy shop, because if I'm not homeschooling, I'm creating. So I have an Etsy shop that has some homeschool items in there, but then other items that I create just for my shop. So, which is also on Etsy. It's called Beautiful Light Home there. So if you have any questions at all, please feel free to reach out. I'd love to connect with you. And happy curriculum planning. Have a great day. Bye.